Hey everyone, this is MC Aquila, aka Mihira, and today I'm going to talk about quality versus quantity, because this is something that I have faced. My main fan comic, TRIFORCE of Power, a Legend of Zelda fan comic, really was focused more on quantity than quality, especially whenever I was first starting it. I was putting out about a page a day? Yeah, about a page a day, except for, I think, Saturdays. And I continued that schedule for like a few months. And I think I eventually had to take a break that summer because my tendonitis got really bad. But like I was still putting out pages pretty darn quickly, and that meant that I didn't have that much time to work on them, which means, that is one of the contributing factors to why the quality of my early chapters is not that great. Sometimes you will see fiction, especially indie fiction, and traditionally published fiction too, but, indie fiction and webcomics that do have a low quality, but they are putting out so much stuff that they do get a lot of readers. But then again, you will also find, the same thing where someone's putting out, several things a day maybe, or updating every day, and they still have almost no following. And then you might also find stuff that's like really, really beautiful, but it almost never updates, so nobody reads it because they literally don't know it exists. And that isn't like the artist's fault necessarily. Let's get into it. Basically, the main takeaway here, I guess the main question is, should you focus more on quality or quantity? Let's get into that. So quality, whenever it comes to making a comic or a story, it's all about making it beautiful, making it as perfect as you can for what it is. So, making every page of the comic beautiful, making, your book, having it be edited a billion, good gracious, having your book be edited a billion times, what have you. So, and then for quantity, you have to remember the extreme speed at which people are consuming things these days. So, for example, in the indie publishing spaces, such as on Amazon, it's generally a great practice to be publishing a novel about once every 3 months or more. That is what a lot of writers are doing, and that is what a lot of readers have come to expect, okay? So, it's the same thing with webcomics. Webtoons, artists who they pay, they update once a week or more, and their updates are long. They're often over 40 panels. That is a lot for it to be drawing every week, and they often have assistants and stuff, but that aside, the point is that this results in consumers being used to being given a lot of media by these indie authors who are publishing really quickly, or by these artists who are being paid and supported by Webtoon to be churning out their stories really quickly. So people have gotten used to that. So it is easier for them to drop a story, to drop a series, to drop a webcomic series, just because it doesn't update as quickly. It sounds very sad, but it does happen, and I do think it's probably more common than it used to be, because that's just what people are used to. They're used to getting it all really quickly. So, over-focusing on quantity obviously can lower quality, though I will say that there are exceptions to this. Some of the authors, the indie authors who are churning out books really quickly, are writing stuff that's really bad. But some of them are writing really good stuff, so it just depends on the writer, on the artist. So let's get into the bad side of focusing too much on quality or quantity, because there are pitfalls to both. I've seen this happen with other webcomic artists where they will really focus on quality, and the result is it just like grinding things to a complete halt. It results in them dropping the projects because they're only putting out like a few pages a year. It will result in them basically having a non-existent audience because the audience has nothing to read. And it's really hard for the audience to find you whenever you aren't publishing anything or you barely publish at all. That's just the way that a lot of the websites, webcomic websites are set up. Especially because Webtoons, it doesn't have a way for you to search and find things unless you like already know the title or things like that. They don't have a keyword system. Like, I think Comic Fury has a keyword system and Tapas has a keyword system. Webtoons doesn't have anything like that. So, yeah, so over-focus on quality results in people often dropping projects. Not always. I've just seen this happen, and it's such a shame because they're making beautiful stuff, but then they lose momentum. They don't get any support because there's nothing for people to support, basically. And yeah, so that's that's a shame, but that is what can happen whenever people focus on quality to the point where they don't have that much to show for their work, aside from, a few really gorgeous pages. And then over focus on quantity. I think that the results of this are more obvious. Lower quality work in general, not always. But you do have a higher chance of being noticed. And I will say that the tolerance people have for lower quality work varies by the market and by the genre in indie markets. So in indie publishing markets, people have different expectations of quality with different genres. So, for example, I would say that the expectations of the quality of novels in the YA indie fantasy market, for example, it depends on the reader, but in general, people aren't that critical. But I feel like people's expectations for art quality in, let's say, Webtoons are pretty high, but that's just because they are getting a lot of great stuff through some Canvas series that are made really well as the official Webtoon originals, where the artists are getting, monetary support so they can hire assistants to help them make stuff that is of higher quality. And also some of the Webtoon originals are literally made by studios, and I have a lot of thoughts on that. But anywho, there are pitfalls to focusing too much on quantity or too much on quality. So how does one avoid this? I think that first it depends on your goals. So like what I really wanted and still want to do with my Legend of Zelda fan comic is to get a big audience, because I really enjoyed sharing the comic with as many readers as who would enjoy it. I really, really want to do that. But because my quality wasn't that good, there are a lot of readers who just really won't want to get through the first few chapters, and like that's totally fair. That was my lack of foresight there. I did not have the foresight to slow down and be like, maybe I should take a little more time on this and maybe update 3 times a week instead of 6 times a week. So I have a little more time to make things polished and maybe use font instead of handwriting the words. Yeah. So that was my goal, and so I really needed to balance those things. Now, if somebody just wanted to make something beautiful for the sake of making something beautiful, and they really don't care whether or not they get an audience or how, why the readership is, then obviously like that person could just pretty much just focus on quality and just really not worry about quantity, not worry about the speed that they're putting things out. I think that that's like pretty cool for like, a hobbyist who just really wants to like push your skills, see how good you can make it, see how much you can grow. That can be really fun. But if you're trying to make stuff that is high quality and at a reasonable quantity, you gotta balance it out. So I think it's totally possible to do this. I think it's possible to have stuff that is high quality and to make it at a quantity, at an output pace where it does fit the market. And you gotta know your market. So that's the main thing. And I'm actually going to use an example that is not webcomics or indie publishing. It's because I've recently, I'm much behind the times, and I recently watched the several Let's Plays for the different Five Nights at Freddy's games. And okay, just so you know, I'm a noob to this, but a few things stood out about these games. as well as the most recent one, Security Breach, whenever I looked into them, and I think that they have some good lessons on quality and quantity, okay? So, I think that the first game came out in around... Okay, I'm going to put the numbers up on the screen because I know I'm going to get this wrong. I should have added this to my script earlier. First game came out around, 2014, 2016, and the next 5 games and the Pizza Simulator came out pretty quickly afterwards. I will put the numbers up on the screen. And the main point is that Scott Hawthorne, the creator, was making these at a pace to satisfy the quantity needs of the market. And whenever you're an indie in general, if people are talking about your work, you want to keep them talking. That's part of why having a good level of quantity is so important, because people won't forget about your work. I mean, because there's just so much other stuff, video games, webcomics, fiction. Like, there's just so many other things people could go out there and buy and consume that you want them to remember and keep in mind your stuff. And the best way to do that is to be putting stuff out there and also be marketing it. I think that he did a lot of fun things with, like, making websites and then, like, customizing them so they were really promoting the games and kind of, like, making it, like, kind of interactive. I don't know, I just remember, like, picking up little bits and pieces there. Basically, strong marketing, a good output, and good quality as far as I can tell. I haven't played the games, but the first 5 games and the Pizza Simulator, the Pizza Simulator was kind of its own thing, but it did seem to be made pretty well. And it's also really cool that he released that for free, as I recall. Anywho, so they seem to strike a good balance between quality and quantity. There's a lot that could be said about, like, the gameplay and the ways that it worked. But as far as I know, I don't think it was glitchy or anything. Like, people seem to have no problems playing it. So, like, the quality was fine. And the writing was quite good. Especially because writing in games is, like, such a hit or miss. And it's very good that the storytelling and the mystery was of a pretty good quality. So the quality was there. The quantity was there. Very good. So I'm not going to discuss the virtual reality and all that games because I don't know too much about them. I tried watching a Let's Play of the virtual reality one, but it was so intense. It looked amazing though. So recently, actually I think it was the end of 2021, they released another Five Nights at Freddy's game, Security Breach, and it is like a cautionary tale. So whereas the first 5 games in the Pizzeria Simulator seem to strike a good balance between quality and quantity, accomplishing a goal of putting out apparently pretty well made, enjoyable games that people kept talking about because they were put out at a pretty good speed, Security Breach something went wrong. There are glitches and bugs, and there's this weird function where, like, whenever you get to the final bit of the story, you cannot save, and there are a lot of ways to, like, die or whatever, so, like, that kind of sucks. That's a really terrible idea. I think that they're planning on fixing that. And also there are just things like unused songs, unused bits of dialogue, I think, and just a lot of things just seem to be just not very polished and kind of incomplete. And yeah, like, that's a crying shame. There is a lot of good stuff in that game. And as I was watching the Let's Play that I was watching, I was like, there's everything here to make this a really fun, really good, really engaging game. But the quality just wasn't there. Like, there was a lot of stuff, but the stuff felt incomplete. The stuff that they had, a lot of it was good. Like, oh my gosh, the music was so good. The art direction was quite good. The character designs were pretty good. I still think that, I know you almost never see the main character, the little kid, Gregory, but something about his character design is, like, I think it's just his hair. I just wanted to trim it, but he's like a homeless child, so I guess it makes sense for him to have bad hair. But, yeah, basically, they did not balance the quality and quantity. They had the materials to do so, but they did not. Because I suspect that they wanted to get the game out for 2021 Christmas, and that was a mistake because it was very incomplete. It needs some polishing and needs some more material. So ironically, it was there was technically less quantity, there wasn't as much stuff there for to give the game substance. Some of the writing was kind of flat. I was really surprised at that. And there was this twist at the end with the true ending, I think. And it's this really wasn't set up. Which is, the other games had good writing. So it's what happened here? So yeah, I guess that's more about how you shouldn't rush things for a Christmas release. I guess that's actually more of a lesson about how, once you are focused on just quantity, aka putting the stuff out there, basically everything can suffer. Because, ironically, they had less material in the game. So, again, the quantity was technically less, even though they were putting the product out there, but there was less for people to enjoy. And it's going to be one of those things where instead of people talking about how amazing the game was, they'll be talking about how well, I liked what was there, but it felt incomplete, which is not what you want. And I guess that's the same thing. Whenever you focus too much on quantity or quality, you're probably going to lose out in some way. So it's kind of a downer thing. I don't mean to be a downer. It's just, I think that thinking about the importance of quality and quantity is something that I didn't really pick up on for a long time, and I think it's important to think about, especially because of, I think people can be kind of, polarizing about it. I feel like it's one of those things where there's no one right answer. Because I mentioned, people have different goals. And then also people can have an attitude about how they tend to approach it. And that's normal. Just remember that just because something works for another artist or author, it doesn't mean it's going to work for you. So just because somebody else is putting out 3 books every quarter. Oh, that's insane. I mean, yeah, that'd be 1 book a month. Most people don't do that. Most indie authors don't do that. It's just because somebody is putting out 4 or 5 books a year, that doesn't mean it's going to work for you. And just because somebody is putting out, a beautiful webcomic that they only update a little bit of once a month, that doesn't mean it's going to work for you. You might want to aim for more quantity. So I guess especially if you're just starting out, it's just something you have to figure out with trial and error. I think that the best thing is just to keep tabs on how things go and figure out what satisfies you about the examples you see in the industries you're working in, and oh, I want to do that, or oh, I don't want to do that. You want the people you want to imitate and the people you don't want to imitate. As well as keeping in mind that just because somebody is doing something really well and it aligns with your goals, it doesn't mean you're going to wind up being that person. So I would love to be able to publish multiple books a year, but for many reasons that is not an option right now. And yeah, I mean, someday that might change. But I don't know. What do you think about the whole quality versus quantity thing? And it's I guess that versus is kind of not a great way to put it, because it's all about finding your own balance and not making the mistake of doing something rushed to just get it out there into the world so people can complain about how incomplete the game was. And Yeah. Let me know your thoughts down below. Oh, and please feel free to correct me if anything I said about the Five Nights at Freddy's games having good gameplay was like completely wrong, because I might be totally wrong. Yeah. Like I said, I'm a noob. Just mildly obsessed with it. Not obsessed enough to look up dates, but well, anyways. I hope y'all have a great day, and I will see y'all in the next video. Bye bye!